I am Guy Blackburn, Director of Social Studies at Oakland Intermediate School District. I am pleased to share with you an illustrated essay on India. This program was prepared as a result of my study in India as part of a Fulbright project funded by the U.S. Department of Education. India is a vast and complex land physically and culturally. As you view this program, allow these photographs to provide a visual backdrop for the essay. Each scene was chosen to present a particular insight into Indian society. The contrasts are many and varied. It is my hope that as a result, you will begin to develop informed impressions so that future study of India is shaped with the intent to more deeply understand this fascinating society. And now, India, it can't work, but it does. Images and Reflections by Guy Blackburn. The Taj Mahal, that exquisite jewel of Mughal architecture, with all its Islamic beauty, symbolizes for India a past of domination from the outside, where invader after invader ruled Indian society for centuries until independence in 1947. The fantasy of glittering palaces of the age of Maharajas suggests the surreal picture of great wealth for a few in a land of stark poverty for the masses in years not so long ago. Such palaces are now preserved as museums for the curious Indian and non-Indian sightseer alike. Men and women carrying bricks and mortar on their heads toil long hours in the relentless sun at construction sites where huge luxury hotels are built with simple hand labor. A curious and fascinating view of human energy and ingenuity. But the workers earn only $1 a day for their labor. Women in vibrantly colored saris, gracefully balancing huge bundles of freshly cut grass on their heads as they wend their way along footpaths between small fields in Rajasthan and other parts of India, present a picturesque scene that again shows the excruciating physical labor that an overwhelming majority of Indian people must do to sustain their lives in an environment of scarcity. Bullocks, water buffaloes, and even camels pulling ancient wooden plows that turn the sun-baked earth in anticipation of the coming monsoons suggest that despite efforts at mechanization, traditional forms of agriculture are still the mainstay of food production in most parts of India. At sunrise, in the holy Ganges, bathers purge their bodies and souls of pollutants so they can continue to lead proper lives by the Hindu code. A touching view of a culture where daily decisions in all matters of life are dependent upon religious sanctions and spiritual motivations. On country roads, cars, trucks, buses at an unrestricted pace, and bicycles, camels, bullock carts, people on foot, and occasionally even elephants compete for a share of the narrow ribbons of pavement that traverse this land. In the cities at peak hours, the streets are a din of horns, shrill whistles, bells, and buzzers, each one designating a particular type of vehicle. In New Delhi, the capital of 6 million, mobility is further frustrated as gentle, revered cows casually wander about in search of a few blades of grass along the roadside. A patient intensity pervades the atmosphere in India. In the cities, prosperous businessmen in Western dress mingle with hawkers more than what they wear. Images of ever-present poverty manifested by street dwellers in the cities and humble village homes in the countryside tear at the heart of the sensitive observer. Pungent odors of smoldering cow dung used as fuel for heating and cooking, sounds of unfamiliar languages, flashes of color, heat and rain dazzle the senses of the newcomer. The naive Westerner who hasn't the background or the time to make sense of it all is forced to come away with incomplete impressions, images of beauty, doubts about the concern about the country's politics, and laden with sadness because of the pervasive poverty. But beneath this stimulating, confusing, and at times shocking surface is a culture that has endured every conceivable assault from nature and human invaders for more than 4,000 years. And today, over 670 million people live their daily lives finding physical and spiritual sustenance in a land that is 1/3 the size of the United States. Everywhere there are conflicts and contrasts that strain the imagination of the non-Indian. As a result, after a brief stay, the neophyte to India often comes to the conclusion, it can't work. The incomprehensible diversity of 14 languages plus English and hundreds of dialects, religious conflicts between majority Hindus and minority Muslims and other sects, the overwhelming problems of poverty, where nearly half the population goes without adequate daily food, the subjugation of women, the crush of population shifts to the city as tillers of the soil leave the land in search of a better life in urban areas, political confusion at the national level that has created a void of leadership from time to time, and at the state level where communists and non-communists vie for power, rioting, the ugliest form of conflict between caste Hindus and former untouchables, and the residual of British imperialism, evident in government bureaucracy, where every decision must snake its way through a seemingly endless hierarchy, a chaotic system of public and private education that competes for nearly non-existent revenue, unemployment in the cities and underemployment in the countryside, the ever-present vulnerability to natural disaster and many other national problems dictate the logic it can't work. In fact, former American Ambassador John Kenneth Galbraith, who was a true friend to India, once remarked that India is in reality a functioning anarchy.
In an interview before her death, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi said, "All of our good work of improving the life of our people is difficult to see. It is like the river Ganges, which is huge when you see it inland. But when it goes out into the ocean, it seems to disappear." Thus, the logic, India can't work, emerges.
But India does work. It has worked for thousands of years and will work in the future. Since independence in 1947, India has made great strides in industrial growth. The country is now an exporter of industrial products such as trucks, buses, locomotives, machinery, and technical know-how. India is giving technical assistance to other developing nations in the Middle East and Africa. India is a diplomatic leader of the non-aligned world, which is a much-needed counterforce in a world polarized by East and West superpowers. Indian leaders see the potential that lies below the surface of the obvious problems. Food production is improving. In fact, the country has gained self-sufficiency in grain production, a surplus in wheat, and vast areas are available for improved cultivation. Government rural development specialists are seeking ways to use the millions of underemployed villagers to produce consumer goods through the expansion of cottage industries. Although women are subjugated in the role of wife, they are respected as people and are often influential in state and national politics.
A dramatic example of this is the late Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, who was the most powerful leader in India before her tragic death.
The caste system that is so alien to Western ways provides a source of self-identity and life roles, and along with the family is the infrastructure of the society. Also, despite clashes, religious tolerance is a general pattern of everyday life for Hindus and Muslims alike. Politically, India is able to accommodate communist control of state governments as the country as a whole struggles to evolve a national, and it should be remembered that this nation is the largest democracy on the face of the earth. Industrial progress continues, and India has entered the computer age, while traditional craftsmanship continues to provide goods and services. Education has made great strides also, and the literacy rate has doubled since independence. Education is now available to all children in the nation. Health services have also improved, and life expectancy has increased. Indian leaders are realistic and know well what problems must be faced. But they also point out that famines are less frequent and that starvation is nearly non-existent. A newcomer to India reels in a sense of confusion, constantly being forced to form a conclusion, only to have its certainty shattered by new information or additional experiences. After emotional and intellectual exhaustion from trying to form reasoned and just general statements about India, one comes to the conclusion that the only safe generalization about the country as a whole is that you simply cannot generalize about such a vast and complex land with its cultural, religious, and political diversity. Thus, themes and topics such as village life contrasted with urban life, the roles of the family, the roles of women, or the examination of current political trends are more valuable topics for study of this complex country. By narrowing the scope and intensifying the study, better understanding of this complex land will emerge for those who wish to truly understand India. A stay in India teaches some big lessons. First, 1 in every 6 human beings on Earth is an Indian. When this is coupled with the population figures for China and other Asian countries, it forces us to realize how little we know and how little we teach about this huge percentage of the world's population. A second lesson is that our way of life is in reality a life of luxury. And when you combine the peoples of the developing nations in the world, one must conclude that most people on Earth live in an environment of scarcity. This realization problems that we face as Americans. Another lesson from a visit to India is that hundreds of millions of people there and in other lands, through necessity, have learned to survive in extreme deprivation. And when contrasted with our energy-dependent lives and economy, one cannot help ponder the possibility that those cultures may be in a better position to continue if energy resources upon which we depend are depleted. Thus surfaces the possibility of a gradual disintegration of industrial Western society, and perhaps the emergence, or at least the maintenance, that are closer to self-sufficiency for the basic needs such as food. A final lesson that is difficult to express is on the personal level. First-hand experience in India causes one to challenge one's very way of being. Wants and needs are indisputably separated. What we value and seek from life is challenged. A deep sense of guilt and frustration sets in as we return to our lives of comfort, while scenes of human deprivation remain indelibly imprinted on our minds. And the unresolved question of, what can I do, haunts our conscience